The Bitcoin Group, the American original. For over the last 10 years, the sharpest Satoshis, the best Bitcoins, the hardest cryptocurrency talk. We'd like to welcome our panelists, Ben Ark from LN Bits.
Evening all.
And I'm Thomas Hunt from the World Crypto Network. Moving on to issue one. Issue one, David Bailey. David Bailey announced on Twitter, "Our journey started 14 years ago when Bitcoin was only $10. Our mission was to make Bitcoin real, something we called hyper-Bitcoinization. Roughly a year ago, we decided to take that vision to the next level with the launch of Nakamoto. Today, I am proud to announce that all of our companies, Bitcoin Magazine, the Bitcoin Conference, and something called UTXO Management, are now under one Nakamoto Incorporated. Chapter 1 is now complete, and the next chapter in our mission to orange pill the world begins. Today is day 0. Thank you." And basically it says that Nakamoto Incorporated will acquire BTC Inc., which includes Bitcoin Conference, Bitcoin Magazine, Bitcoin for Corporations, it says, and something called UTXO Management. This is a very complex and fascinating issue. As we reported on a few months ago, Nakamoto originally launched with many insiders allegedly buying at around $1. The price of the release when they took over the Kindly MD, which was listed on the NASDAQ, they took over that company, took their symbol, the price went up to $30. Then everyone got mad. All of these influencers seemed really well off. And then the price went back down to $1 and then down to 30 cents. What's interesting about this deal is, according to the details, which are online and are not exactly clear, it seems like the deal was at $1. So they continued to keep the stock price at around $1 rather than the actual 30 cents. And it seems as though this company, which I believe Nakamoto owns around 26,000 Bitcoins, is still valuable. And they have given that to the BTC Incorporated company in exchange for their conferences. The only person to vote on this on the board was something like David Bailey, something like that. It's a very complicated issue. There's been much reaction online, with some people allegedly saying that David Bailey used a 99% stock collapse to buy his own empire. Other people saying that David Bailey followed through on what he said he was going to do, which I can confirm, being at the Bitcoin conference, not speaking with him personally, but just watching the show. He talked about buying the conference, buying the magazine with the Nakamotos. He was much more psyched about the price and the potential of Nakamoto's as a Bitcoin treasury company, similar to MicroStrategy. This is, of course, when the price was up. Now that the price is down, presumably that's hurt this whole project. Justin Beckler at Bit110 on Twitter at 1914ad writes, "You can't make this up. Yesterday, David Bailey overstated his own company's revenue by 28% on X Spaces. His legal team was forced to file an 8K this morning with the SEC, correcting their own CEO. Today, Bailey announces Nakamoto is acquiring his own companies. Then he goes on an X Space hosted by Bitcoin Magazine, the company he's acquiring, and tells investors that Bitcoin Incorporated and UTXO did over $100 million in revenue. Today, Nakamoto issues a correction because the actual number was 78 million. He overstated the revenues of the company he's selling to himself by 28% on a Spaces deal hosted by one of those companies one day after announcing the deal." It's very interesting stuff. As he says, this is the man who compares himself to the Medicis, the Morgans, and the Rothschilds. Now he's on Spaces doing the aw shucks routine, playing the innocent builder who stumbled into 710 million and has no idea how any of this works or the basics of running a public company. So it's very strange. There's more comments going on, but we'd like to go to Ben Ark. What do you think about this whole situation? The Nakamoto stock, the Bitcoin Incorporated companies being sold, and David Bailey himself in the middle of it, apparently allegedly overstating the value of his companies, and then having to force forms. You have to file forms and retractions if you make incorrect public statements on the NASDAQ, things like that.
I think there's kind of two versions of this story. There's a nice, juicy, salacious one, which when you look at it, all the events which have happened, It seems like it was calculated, and that from the beginning, though, it was basically a pump and dump. So you would have, um, so they buy Kindly MD, which is a Nasdaq listed stock, through this reverse merger SPAC mechanism, which means you can then have a company very easily go public without having to go do the things to go public. You just reverse merge into this, what they call a zombie corp, even though Kindly MD wasn't quite a zombie corp at that point.
Now, see
And
that
then,
part seems really clever, but it also seems suspect. Like if you just launched the company normally, I don't think they would have got on the Nasdaq. But he uses this clever move to get on the Nasdaq. Then he's at down to $1. Nasdaq's talking about delisting him. That's when he does this. I don't know how to understand it yet. Selling his own companies to
well,
himself.
let me go through my exact train of thought because I don't want to lose it. So there's one version in which, there's this very calculated move that so that happened. So they do that. They buy the Kindly MD. They have a public company, which they're able to use as a treasury company. Treasury companies are very hip. Lots of people are getting into treasury companies. It makes sense to run a treasury company, and we covered it on this show. And there were some pipe investors. So there's people who are able to invest in the stock before it kind of goes public and people really start investing in it. And that includes people like Adam Back, Jameson Lopp, those sorts of people. That pushes the price up to about $5 from $1. And then when it goes out to just the general retail investor, it then pushes the stock up to $30 because we had all these influencers saying, you should go buy NAKA, blah, blah, blah. Right. And then the theory is that Bailey knew that the stock was going to crash, and then he would take out a bunch of loans from Kraken and from wherever else, which has happened, and then he used it to enrich himself by buying his own two companies back using the Bitcoin which the company owns. Now, none of there's parts of that which are true, and then there's parts of that which just aren't true. So the reality, which is the other story, the other version of the story, is Bailey sets up a treasury company. It has issues. It hasn't got Michael Saylor on CNN, which is the thing which really pushes a lot of retail investors towards MicroStrategy. So it has some issues. The stock drops, the price of Bitcoin drops, confidence in treasury companies drop, and then in order to save what's left of Nakamoto, what was Kindly MD, he then sells it Bitcoin Magazine and then also the conference company and UTXO Management. And I think it's the two companies. I think one of them does two things. He sells those to Nakamoto in a way to breathe some confidence back into the Nakamoto stock so it doesn't crash completely. Now, I actually think that the second version is what actually happened. Like when you look back at it retrospectively, you're like, well, the first version was all very calculated, but I know like David Bailey was very stressed out when the stock price collapsed of Nakamoto and it's traded at 30 cents. If you trade at 30 under the dollar for I think it's like 3-4 months, then you're at risk of the Nasdaq delisting you, which then really undervalues the value just falls out. And the crazy thing is, they have like enough Bitcoin in order to justify the stock price being at $1. But the faith in the stock has just dropped so much that it's on the floor. Now I know that was an incredibly stressful scenario for David Bailey, and contrary to what some people are reporting, they think that these pipe investors who came in and bought the stock at $1, pushed it to $5, then it went up to $30. They think that they all bailed and sold their stock at $30, and it was basically an elaborate pump and dump for an insider crew of Bitcoiners. Now, Jameson Lott's spoken publicly on this. He's still holding his equity in Nakamoto because he still believes in it, which means he's made a loss. He's lost a third of the value. Well, it's now a third of a value as what it was before, or less. So, and I think that might be true of some of the other pipe investors as well. The public filings will probably clear that up. But yeah, I think the reality is that they started this treasury company. It struggled and it's had some issues. They've scraped to keep the thing alive, which is why they had this huge loan from Kraken, so the Bitcoin which they own, they use as 150% collateral to get a massive, I think it's like $200 million loan or something from Kraken, which means that if they default, then Kraken will just take 150% of the worth from the Bitcoin which they own. So he tried all these different things to keep Nakamoto alive. And then kind of the last thing he can really do is he has these two companies which are very valuable. Like the Bitcoin conference is huge. It attracts thousands and thousands of people. People spend a lot of money to go to that conference. It's probably the most successful, financially successful conference which exists. He then sells those to Nakamoto and it's effectively on the cheap. So because he's pricing the share price at $1, he didn't buy it for Bitcoin. He bought it for shares. So he's bought the conference, for example, he's bought that via Nakamoto shares, but priced them at $1, but they're not $1. They're at like 29 cents or 26 cents or whatever it is. So effectively, the Nakamoto company has bought Bitcoin Magazine, UTXO Management, and I think that other company at a 70% price reduction. So he sold them on the cheap. And like, I think for Bailey, this is like an all or nothing play. Like it's a ballsy move. I think they'll be all right because they still have a load of Bitcoin and a load of, this is the conference which basically got Trump elected. Like it's a very powerful conference. There's a lot of powerful friends. He'll be all right. But I think it's kind of a ballsy move because if Nakamoto now like fails as a company, it's going to take down the Bitcoin conference company and UTXO management with it. So to me, it seems like the last move a dude can do to breathe some life into the Nakamoto stock. And it isn't this big conspiracy where he planned it from the beginning. I have some personal info on that and talking to people where I would think that that's very unlikely from some of the people I've spoken to. I mean, including Bailey himself at certain times. So I just don't. Yeah, I just don't think that's true. It sucks because lots of people lost their money, but we talked about it on the show. Like Nakamoto as a treasury company, it just isn't MicroStrategy in the public market because they haven't got the Michael Saylor guy on CNN talking every 5 minutes.
And MicroStrategy got 3 or 4 rounds of free money before they figured out what he was doing. The index fund not adjusting anymore, not being able to go to the private market, having to go to retail. He's lost a lot of his magic too. And they, by being late and copycatting, followed him.
Yeah, basically, they were just copying the model and they thought it would work. And we spoke about it on the show. We said we underestimated the Saylor effect. So yeah, I mean, it's one of those things you look. And the other thing is as well, like as far as Bailey's, because there's so many investors who are annoyed at David Bailey over the Nakamoto price crashing from $30. Now, if it does for whatever reason, if regulators start sniffing around and it goes to court or some tribunal or something, he can legitimately say, look, I sold these other companies which were profitable and doing well and completely separate to this Nakamoto interest. I sold those cheap, so a 70% price reduction to the company for shares to try and keep Nakamoto alive, which I would think shows willingness to make the investors in Nakamoto whole at some point. So it's because when I first read those, is it Justin? What's his name? Justin, the guy who wrote the Twitter threads on the whole debacle. What's his name?
Justin Belcher,
Belcher,
Beckler, I think.
Beckler. When I first read those tweets, I was like, oh wow, okay, well there's something afoot here. But then just delving a little bit more deeply into it, there's a few inaccuracies like the price reduction thing. So yeah, good luck to Bailey, and I hope the investors in Nakamoto are made whole.
That's what I don't get, and that's what I want to understand is that I don't know if David Bailey is a genius or a fool. Oh man, it's not doing my camera again. Oh, Zoom, you're just terrible. Zoom.
I think it was doing your camera.
I think it's the. I don't think it shows the close up of me on the thing. I think when I switch to this, it's going to show you.
Well, that's all right. You can just look at me.
I want you to just look at Ben, but I'll try to talk anyway. But anyway, is David Bailey a genius or a fool? He seems to hit every branch on the tree on the way down. I don't know what he's doing. I think that I agree with Ben that the conference is valuable. At the very least, the conference mailing list is valuable, as we saw just a few years ago. Money 2020, this financial conference that nobody's ever heard of, where all these people in fintech who do payments hang out. Nobody even knows this is a thing. Their conference mailing list was incredibly valuable. Their company sold for tons of money. So if there's value in the Bitcoin conference, it's in that mailing list. It's in the people, like Ben said, that they can motivate to come to their conference and to buy booths and to sponsor and make speeches and all the things. Bitcoin Magazine, I don't think it's that valuable. I see it at the Barnes and Noble, there's always 5 copies. There's always 10 copies. I always buy one. The other 9 copies remain until the end of the run. Then, a new copy comes around. I buy one more. It's expensive. It's glossy. It's difficult to read. The articles are increasingly more and more right-wing, which I guess because they won is okay. But I've still argued for this middle way of not making Bitcoin left or right, but making Bitcoin both and everything. They have gone their own way, making Bitcoin right, as Ben said, electing Trump, backing Trump. And then now, look, they're going to get returned for it, this horrible crypto bill, which we're not talking about this week because it's not directly up. But it does seem like the banks have won. The crypto companies, Ripple and Coinbase, et cetera, have folded, and the stablecoin interest will be no more. So the democratizing power of crypto, which started out really big, we were going to do all those things. It came down to making money in your savings account, making 4% instead of 0.0001 or whatever the banks offer. And we lost that too. We're not going to have that. But you could have crypto. Anyway, I think there's another thing we should talk about here, Ben. It's a really interesting comparison in my mind between Bitcoin Magazine, Let's Talk Bitcoin, World Crypto Network / Mad Bitcoins. And what's interesting is Bitcoin Magazine started by maybe Tony Galippi, some Bitcoin BTC Pay guys, and as well as Vitalik Buterin, who wrote for them and so forth, sold to David Bailey. David Bailey gets rid of his old magazine. I can barely remember the title now, but he had an old crypto magazine, got rid of that, transferred it over, took over that. Then David Bailey buys Let's Talk Bitcoin, says that he's going to use it, doesn't use it. He can make a choice. It's not his fault. Everyone can buy a thing and not use it. Yahoo does it all the time. But Let's Talk Bitcoin goes away. They try to come back. They're like, let's speak about Bitcoin. Let's discuss Bitcoin, some other different name, same crew, doesn't go anywhere. World Crypto Network, Mad Bitcoins just keeps plugging out normal, small YouTube episodes. But David Bailey's up on the stock market doing all this dance, Ben, with all this money and the conference. What an amazing thing that he's built. Whatever it is, whether it's good or bad, it loses these people's money. It's a massive enterprise of thing that he's built out of nothing. So I just don't know if he's a genius or a fool. I'm going to check the comments now. What do you think, Ben?
I think he's hopefully my sound's better because apparently I was being a bit too loud there. He's a clever guy. Like, he is a clever guy. He's a young guy. And when we're all young, we all make mistakes. So I'm sure he's not without his mistakes, but he's a clever guy. He's a young guy. He's always been good to us. And despite, the BTC conference being the biggest corp conference out there, they've always made a space for the free and open source area, which is nice. And then done things like paid for people's plane tickets and accommodation if they were helping out in the free and open source area. So, yeah, I got time for him. I mean, I generally overlook. I think he's a nice guy. Seems like a nice guy. I think he is connected to kind of older finance and money. So I think that probably helps when it comes to engaging with the traditional markets and building up these big companies, Thomas. But yeah, good luck to him.
Well, they say in the chat that Ben is much louder than Thomas in the chat, and that's why it won't switch my mic over. I don't know, but Ben's muted now, and it still won't switch my camera. I'm going to have to go in the settings and double check it again. It's been an issue, but I don't know what we'll do about the sound. I tried to turn mine up, but
it went down again, but it's making its own way back up. That's naughty, isn't it? How odd.
Well, I don't know what's going on with Zoom. It's so sad. These software things, they used to work, and then they just break them, and they stop working. I don't want to be crazy loud either. So,
yeah. How about now? How about now? Right there. I'll turn. No, he keeps making his way back up. Maybe it's the. Oh, I know. Maybe it's the. Oh, sorry. It's like we're noobs, Thomas. This is why David Bailey has these big companies, because he knows how to work microphones.
Yeah, well, the software keeps changing. That's one thing. But it's interesting, Ben. You say he might be tied to early money. Also, we know that Jack Mallers, and publicly he's talked about this, they have direct ties to like the old banking families or the old Chicago Mercantile Exchange and so forth. I don't want to display anybody by saying banking families, but yeah, it's interesting to see on Twitter. There's lots of this is this and that is that, upset people with David Bailey and all this stuff. It seems really clever. I just don't know if
Well, I
he's a
mean,
genius or not.
legitimately. So, I mean, I think I've changed the settings, so it should be all right now. My audio should be better. Um, People are legitimately upset because they thought that this was a new version of strategy and it was going to follow the same strategy, strategy, trajectory of 100xing, 1000xing, whatever strategy did. Um, so people invested large portions of their stack into it. They gambled, like I mean, it's public record, but some of those pipe investors invested tens of millions into Nakamoto, which they made a bunch of money when it was up its high, but someone like a Jameson Lopp, who reportedly in an interview I heard him say that he kept his stock because um, he hasn't made that gain. So uh, I can see why people are annoyed. But this is what happens when if you invest in a something like that company.
It was also
Um,
so weird for me, Ben, with that one because I thought everybody was all in Bitcoin, especially some of the people on that list. And then this thing comes out, oh, we're investing in stocks now and we're investing in stock companies. And I guess for a while, people were investing in MicroStrategy. And I was like reading about it and talking about it, but not really investing in it because, again, it was like, well, I've already invested in that crazy Bitcoin thing. Maybe that'll work out. But the MicroStrategy went down, the Nakamoto's went down, Bitcoin went down. I don't know what
but
much
I know
better.
so with it with say the strategy, for example. So I know a couple of legit free and open source developers in our ecosystem who everybody knows, who were able. So they had, they worked for a Bitcoin company, they had their 401k or whatever, and then or they had equity, and then when they left a company, then they switched the equity, and because the strategy was the only Bitcoin company, essentially they could switch the equity to, they switched it to that, and then that was early on in strategy, and then strategy pumps really hard. And they just make a killing on the side selling options for strategy as people holding the equity. Um, and they made, eye-watering amounts of money which they could retire on. And these are the sorts of people you wouldn't, they're not like traders or anything. They're the sorts of people you wouldn't think were involved in investing in strategy. Um, so, I mean, I never went near the thing, but yeah, there's a lot of Bitcoiners who made a decent stack off it. Um, of strategy, and I can see why. I mean, I think I thought the same thing with the Nakamoto thing. I mean, I was tempted. I was like, well, it's the money printer. I can't see why it wouldn't do the same thing as strategy, um, and make a ton of money.
Except that seems so obvious. Anytime you're like, it'll do the same thing because of this, it'll do this because it did it before. That's always how it comes before the fall with the obvious investments. It still won't show me on a close up video.
But Starship says strategy. Sorry, Starship. Starship says that we're more equalized.
Well, that'd be good. But he also says he paid off his mortgage with master gains last year. Can't stack sats directly in the tax advantaged account. So there you go.
See,
There's
yeah.
a good reason to buy MicroStrategy. And
I think if
again,
Starship
not
was able to pay off his mortgage, then it was all worthwhile because he's a great
certainly
guy.
not investment advice, but maybe this Nakamoto's is a buy. Who knows? Maybe it's a
And that's
sell or a
that's good.
sell short,
Yeah, I
you
mean
know? But
that's good news too because that's an example of somebody who was clearly able to dump some to pay off a mortgage. So that's great. Good on him. Yeah.
well, exit question. What will happen next? Will David Bailey be a big success like MicroStrategy in El Salvador were a few years ago and now not anymore, or maybe even a few months ago? Or will David Bailey fail horribly? These companies collapse, Bitcoin Magazine be set to the fire, the conference sold for their mailing list, these other things just kind of burned in random detritus, and maybe Kindly MD makes a comeback. What do you think, Ben?
I think the biggest risk that Bailey's got because he's quite a public figure and he speaks a lot about these things, and then he can easily get himself in trouble, um, which he did with the overvaluation. Which again, these companies made 87 million in revenue, which is great. And in a Twitter Spaces, he says he's made over 100 million. Now that's the sort of spiel which you say in the locker room, oh, they made over 100 million, and they made 87 million, but so he's like he's just pumping it up and he's bigging it up a little bit, and it's the sort of thing you'll say off the cuff, but actually there's real world financial. There's a he then had to they had the company that Nakamoto then had to list this. I can't remember what it's called. An 8K or something, that's some sort of form with the SEC to say no, it's not actually valued at this. So I think that's probably Bailey's biggest risk. I don't think he's going anywhere. He knows too many people. He's too connected. Like as we said, he's the guy. He basically got Trump that 250 million in investment from Bitcoiners to help him win the election. Like he's not going anywhere. And I think it's a kind of a ballsy play what he's done, and hopefully it makes the Nakamoto people whole by incorporating those other companies into it.
I hate to say it, but I think this is one of those smart plays at the bottom. He's buying his company cheap, he's selling his company cheap, he's holding everything. If things go back up, he still holds these companies, he still controls them, and now his portfolio or treasury company or whatever we're going to call it is up too. So this could save the company, but again, not investment advice. You do what you want to do. Moving on to issue two. Issue two, SBF Reborn. SBF is back on Twitter, quoting that there's 10 myths about him and FTX. He's very upset that people think he was insolvent or the money went away. He's also very proud of his investment acumen. If he had been allowed to hold his investments, he says, why, he had investments in Anthropic and they made Claude. He had Solana at incredibly low numbers, as well as other coins. However, as many people responded to him, it wasn't just that because of his investments, as it says here, Anthropic at 7%, 58 million Solana tokens, SpaceX through K5 Global, Robinhood, all these great investments. He made good investments with other people's money, and then he couldn't survive a bank run, is one interpretation. SBF has been pushing this interpretation on social media himself, as well as attacking the Democrats, as he's suddenly a right-wing cartoon character version of himself in his profile. Many people responded that people were unable to withdraw their money because he had converted the customer deposits into bricks of heroin, but the street value was substantially higher than their total liabilities, so he doesn't understand why he hasn't been pardoned yet. People are not buying the SBF transformation story, as it said here on Master at Master XYZ. You were not convicted for a liquidity crisis, for bankruptcy, or poor risk management. You were convicted for using customer funds without consent, giving Alameda undisclosed preferential treatment, and making statements to customers and investors that did not match the internal reality. Your thread rewrites the timeline and replaces the legally relevant facts from November 22nd with outcomes that exist only after the bankruptcy estate regained value. As others have said, this is false. The definition for solvent for an exchange is you have to have the customer assets in the form the customers held them, which you can return to the customers at any time they want. FTX did not do that. According to @AustinCampbell on Twitter, they were insolvent. I guess we'll go to me, Thomas Hunt. What do you think of FTX coming back and the SBF drama, or even vice versa? Well, obviously, this is all just my personal opinion, but I don't think his comeback's going to be successful. I think he's trying to get a pardon from President Trump. He's trying to reform his image. And while I agree with the Twitter posters who say that his investments were incredible, obviously, we all wish we could have invested in an AI company early. We wish we had the altcoin that was the winner, all of these other things. If as accused, he took the customer funds, say you invest some money, it's supposed to be there in Bitcoin. He's supposed to hold the Bitcoin. He's not supposed to take the money, invest it in other random things, buy a television ad with Tom Brady. Whatever it is, even if it turns out great, the funds are supposed to be held there, is my understanding of exchanges. Although it's interesting to think that banks actually take your money and loan it out over and over and over again, using a multiplier and so forth. Maybe FTX or SBF just thought he was a bank. Ben Ark, what do you think? Is SBF going to get away with it? Will he get a pardon? Do you believe he's a right-wing cartoon character now?
So MT Gox was solvent. I didn't realize that, when it all kicked off, because ultimately the Bitcoin ended up being worth far more than the debts which they owed their users. it's a terrible argument that I invested in all this crap with users' money without their knowledge. One of the things I invested, or a couple of the things I've invested in, have pumped enough, which meant that we would now be solvent. But at that time, he wasn't solvent, and those investments weren't solvent. And again, we covered it on the show, like the actual accounting system they had in FTX was terrible. I mean, there wasn't an accounting system. It was just him moving money and paying off politicians and paying out all these things, investing in all these things. So yeah, it's I mean, he's in jail. I mean, he's in jail. I don't understand how he can be using a phone and tweeting out. I like his new profile picture. He's not actually using his real face because his real, clearly he looks like a corrupt human. Yeah, there we go. It's like he couldn't possibly engineer his actual face to look like that and smile. So, yeah, maybe he's going for the Trump pardon. Maybe there's some back channeling, and it's like if I can make a better public image, and they give you some money. He's from old money. He's from a rich family. Um, maybe he's saying, look, if I give you $1 billion, if we can spin the public narrative, can I get one of them pardons, those Trump pardons, before you leave? And it could happen. Who knows? It could happen. But yeah, and it is a good point that within the exchange world, like they have these crazy runs. Like I think CZ said that they survived I think it was $7 billion in one day or something. A run on
That's a
Bitfinex.
good contrast there too, Ben, that CZ is out and free touring the White House, running around the world, collecting pardons and so forth. And his buddy, Sam at FTX, who CZ, as we all remember, stabbed in the back by saying that they were not liquid, saying that you should get your money out, etc., whatever he said back in the day. And that stab pretty much took Sam down. He's out. He's fine. He's doing great. So it's tough for Sam. It must be tough to see that.
Well, I mean, yeah, but it's also tough for those people who lost all their money in FTX. I think we all knew people who lost money in FTX, so there's not much sympathy for that guy, no matter how much he tries to spin the narrative. So, which is why I think he's having a lot of backlash from people for him trying to spin the narrative. But ultimately, I don't think it matters. I think the current government you have in Thomas, if you give them enough money and give them enough of an excuse to pardon someone, then they'll pardon someone. So perhaps he will be pardoned. He'll be back at it.
That's why I think it all depends on whether Sam hid away or squirreled away some money. For all we know, that's happened allegedly with the Dread Pirate Roberts. Maybe he had some money to pay later. But I'm going to go ahead and go right now. Forced prediction. Will SBF get his pardon? I'm going to say no, because of what we said. He had all these investments, but he doesn't have them now. If he had the money from Anthropic, if he had the other money, I agree with Ben. He could buy his pardon. I don't think he has enough money to buy a pardon unless he has sources of funds that I don't know about. Ben Ark, what do you think? Forced prediction. Does SBF get his pardon?
Yeah, old money. They always win. Sadly. Yeah, he'll be fine.
Going a different way. We'll have to see how that turns out. Moving on, check out worldcryptonetwork.com. We've got 4,762 videos, including recent shorts with me and Ben right here on worldcryptonetwork.com. Moving on to issue 3. Kevin Leary, Mr. Wonderful Kevin O'Leary, wins a $2.8 million defamation judgment against former crypto influencer, Ben BitBoy Armstrong. The case apparently involved an issue where Kevin O'Leary's boat might have struck another boat. Things might have happened. Mr. Armstrong had a very negative characterization of those things, which obviously we don't want to be sued for defamation. We're not going to repeat. According, it says here that perhaps Mr. Armstrong accused Mr. Leary of murder, which is a horrible thing to say. It says his posts, which drew 156,000 views, had they had Kevin O'Leary's private cell phone number along a call for followers to, quote, call a real life murderer. That post resulted in a 12-hour suspension from the platform. Armstrong tried to fight it, saying that he had mental health issues and bipolar. This is a continuation of the BitBoy collapse. And I don't think, it's hard to say, but it probably doesn't even have the 2.8 million to pay him. So this could be a real backbreaker for BitBoy, a huge victory for Kevin O'Leary, Mr. Wonderful from Shark Tank. Ben Ark, what do you think about the continued BitBoy collapse? He was a big time commentator. He was promoting altcoins. He had little graphics that flowed down the screen, like, pardon the interruption, how awesome that was, what great graphics he had. Then there was a lot of internal drama, alleged problems with women in the workplace, people's wives, Lamborghinis, money, altcoins, bribery, all kinds of alleged things happening with BitBoy. And then now this disastrous judgment.
It's fast times a BitBoy high, isn't it? I mean, in the UK, we're kind of used to slander in traditional media, and that's why for us, when we see people posting on Facebook and then the police rocking up and knocking on their door and saying, "Oh, what are you doing?" Like, you can't advocate burning people's houses down, whatever. Like, for us, it's not a huge shock, like, that happens. But I know in the US, obviously, you have much more light touch when it comes to free speech, or just complete blanket free speech, as opposed to selective free speech, which is what we have basically in the UK. But it seems to me like people are getting a little bit more twitchy on the old slander front in the US. I'm hearing more and more of these court cases where people in the US are winning slander court cases against people, and BitBoy seems to be one of these people. I mean, it's a wild thing to do, and particularly publishing somebody's phone number. You're picking a fight with someone who's rich and influential and has the money and the resources to sue you. But I think, in social media, it contorts people to become obsessed with chasing those likes. And BitBoy did that, chased the likes to the point where he hoisted himself with his own petard. And 2.8 million is a lot of money. And I don't think he's that rich a man, blew it all on Lambos and whatever else. So, yeah, I mean, like, it's something which you would expect to happen if you did that in the UK, but I think maybe in the US it's a little bit less likely for that to happen. So, do you find that, Thomas? Do you find that the US is becoming a little bit more sensitive when it comes to slander cases?
I mean, I think they want to be. I think there's the idea of like prior restraint. They want to make you afraid so you can't say anything. That's definitely a trend that's going through the country here, as well as with rumors about people who discuss or disagree with ICE having their records drawn and so forth. So, this idea that there will be some kind of future retribution for speaking out, maybe you shouldn't speak out. But I don't think this is really the case here with BitBoy. This is a really childish and teenage and obviously incredibly destructive to Mr. Leary thing here, posting his phone number, accusing him of murder. This is beyond the pale. This isn't just a back and forth like celebrity argument. It seems that he went at him indirectly, where there's this unfortunate incident with the boating accident, but then to also post his personal details, which again, who knows how he got those details. I don't know if they were friends or connected or if it's publicly available or what, but yeah, it's a big disaster. And it's the BitBoy story is just a horribly sad, in its own way, sad story, but he did kind of destroy himself at every level. If you look into it, he screwed up his business. He screwed up his financial and personal relationships. He did a bunch of questionable things, backing all the altcoins, so on and so forth. So it is interesting to see the different options. We often talk about how Brian Armstrong and Coinbase went a certain way, being a registered and controlled and regulated exchange. CZ and Binance went another way, being an unregulated and uncontrolled exchange. Although I think that's changing now, to see BitBoy be kind of the unregulated, out of control YouTuber. He really went his own way with that. I think he took it about as far as you can. Not that we're regulated YouTubers here, but we definitely don't have the reach or the up and the down that BitBoy did. What do you think, Ben? What a violent up and a violent down for this character. Like, even just as a person, like, what a horrible ride he had to go on. Even if he caused it himself, and obviously he hurt people. People invested in these altcoins. People invested in his company. They invested there, things like that.
I mean, I guess it's sort of shitcoin mentality, isn't it? I mean, it's like Poloniac psychology. where you're addicted to the adrenaline of it all. You know, this thing which I'm buying could make me unfathomably rich, or I lose everything, and that is, you know, shitcoin land. That's what they do. Um, so clearly that type of character, maybe the bipolar type of character, is attracted to that. Um, but I think this is probably more of a case of somebody just chasing those likes too hard and too far, and it's you know, it's the algorithm shit, isn't it? It's the things which are baked into traditional social media contort humans in a way which Nosta doesn't. So use Nosta, and then you won't be chasing the like dragon and putting yourself in
It is
sticky
funny to think
positions.
about what must have been going through his mind. He has probably a feud going on with Kevin O'Leary. They're going back and forth, message to message, and then at some point he decides he's going to, end the feud with this ridiculous accusation, and then posting the man's personal details. He must have been out of his mind to think that that was a good idea, especially, Kevin O'Leary's on TV. He's a big investor guy. He's on CNN actually very frequently now, talking about the political situation, and I believe he has ties as well publicly to President Trump. So yeah, real big risk for BitBoy. Their real mistake going after a giant. Although I do agree, kind of as you say, Ben, we used to have a more lighter feel here in the United States to see actual money be drawn against BitBoy. It's not jail time, but it is life destroying money. If he has it, I don't think he has it.
It's a
Uh,
funny concept because with the promise with Trump was that there would be less of that, isn't it? But it kind of feels to me that when I hear a lot of people talking, particularly about Trump or whatever, in the US now, they always drop in allegedly and these keywords so to insulate themselves from um, repercussions and retribution. And it didn't seem to be such a factor before. Like the US always prided itself on libel law being harder to enact in the US. So it's interesting that it's like, you know, counter to the kind of the what Trump was promising, or I don't know, maybe not promising, but what people assumed he would be promising, which would be sort of a freer society when it came to speech. Yeah, and he himself has obviously been suing people left, right, and center for
well,
libel.
the main thing we don't seem to have an end of here in the United States, and I don't think it's H.L. Mencken, but it sounds like him, is there's no end to our hypocrisy. So the fact that Kevin Leary could be linked to Trump, who's part of the "we have very tough skin" faction, and at the same time to have this thing pierce his skin, and for him have to go to the lawyers and have to go to the courts and have to ruin this other man's life because of this accusation and this phone number posting, which again is you can write somebody's phone number on a bathroom wall. It's a horrible crime. As it's a destruction of their phone number, but it's not really the same as like killing someone or removing the finances from their entire life, which presumably BitBoy will be in debt or bankrupt because of this. It just seems very, what do they call it? Snowflake. It seems like he's crying out his
Yeah,
feelings,
exactly.
but
That's
again,
the term which
he's
they
a
pushed.
hypocrite,
Yeah.
right? I mean, all of these people, like if you go on TV and you're like, oh, no more snowflakes, you shouldn't do that. They're always the same ones that go back and then would be suing and then would be, happy about this verdict and able to accept it. I mean, even if he won, okay, so let's say I was Mr. Wonderful. Okay, it's great, we won, we ruined BitBoy. I would kind of just drop the money part because I don't think he needs it. But I think the whole like, you shouldn't post that, you shouldn't post the man stuff. That's fine, but the money part just cripples him. So, and I don't even know care for the guy, whatever. But it's just very vindictive. But that's also the American system. He won. The case says he gets the money. He gets the money. So, well, let's move on to the exit question. I don't want to forget and go to the end of the show and then have everyone say, you didn't do the ball. I don't know how to predict my money this week. I'm going to have to ask the AI or something. So, exit question, Ben Ark, predicting against the greatest source of all truth in this or any other known universe. Will the price of Bitcoin be higher or lower this time next week?
We are, as I've said, and I've been right, we are in a bear market. We're in the post-halving bear market now. And this one's different to the other bear markets. And I'm not puffing on the hopium. There's just so many eyes on Bitcoin, and there's so many people who know what it is, and in traditional finance as well. And there's these companies with which people can access Bitcoin through. Um, but yeah, we're looking, of course, at like a 2 to 3 year bear market. usually. Um, when we eventually come out of it, I don't know what the price will drop to, maybe 30 grand, whatever. Um, when we do eventually come out of it will be the pump. It will be the pump which pushes Bitcoin to being the world reserve currency, the backbone of the world's finance, because it just makes sense. There's so many people who have eyes on Bitcoin now. But yeah, 2 to 3 years of bear, maybe if something happens in a year and a half, 2 years, maybe it might end earlier. If we have Bretton Woods 2.0. But yeah, down, 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 down.
It's so funny with all the Bitcoin stories. It's always the hero's journey. It's darker before the dawn. All we have to do is go through the mountains of Moria, come out the other side, and everything will be fine. Is always what I hear. So that's disappointing to see that still valid and that we're still on that track. But I remember it last time, and it turned out last time all right. But it did take years and years, and we lost a lot of dwarves and elves and
There's two to
other
two to
people.
3 years, and it's the point when Bitcoin has bottomed is when there's blood on the streets. People aren't talking about Bitcoin. No one ever mentions the price, and no one ever says, "Oh, I think we've hit the bottom." When that's gone, and there's an expectation that it's going to go lower, that is the bottom, and that's where you buy your Bitcoin and hold it because it's going to pump like crazy.
Well, all this dark pessimism from Ben. I'm still optimistic about Bitcoin, but I guess I'm kind of an idiot. But let's see what the Magic 8 Ball says because it is the source of truth. Will the price of Bitcoin be higher this time next week? Outlook good. Outlook good. So at least short term, the ball is positive. Moving on to issue 4, Killing Satoshi Bitcoin biopic starring Pete Davidson and Casey Affleck, set to use AI for locations and to quote adjust performances. Indie film from director Doug Liman, director of Go, The Bourne Identity, a few other movies, and producer Ryan Kavanaugh disclosed in the United Kingdom casting notice the intent to use advanced tech tools in production. Well, I'm going to take this first. This is quite a radical story. First, I think it's funny to call it a biopic, or as people say, biopic. It's really weird, about a person who has no face, no identity, and no biography. We don't know where Satoshi grew up, where he went to school, or she, or they, or it, or them, or a space alien, or whoever it is. So it's funny that it's a biopic. But beyond that, AI for locations, that's a little interesting. Maybe they're using computer graphics backgrounds to be cheap. Maybe they're using the volume, like the Mandalorian, the famous Star Trek show, and many other computer graphic generated background shows. They use Unreal Engine to create a background that moves with the characters. That makes sense. That's not that strange to use AI. This last one is a little hard to swallow and goes far beyond the Bitcoin group. Adjust performances. Actors don't even like it when you read the lines to them and say, do the line like this. There's a famous Rob Reiner story. They keep talking about Jack Nicholson. And he tells him, do the line like this. And Jack's like, I'm not going to do the line like you tell me to do it. I'm not a monkey. I don't just repeat things back. But for Casey Affleck and Pete Davidson to be fine with this, for it to quote, adjust the performances. It's one thing to edit a scene or take a reaction shot or miscut things. There's many things you can do with tricks. And I suppose it could just be one new trick or one new tool. And that's to say nothing about whatever the plot of this movie is going to be about Bitcoin and quote, killing Satoshi or something about that, some kind of CIA spy thriller type thing, I imagine. Ben Ark, what do you think? This a pretty dramatic thing, the AI adjusting performances. I mean, what do you think about that?
There was a really interesting court case, and it was Crispin Glover for Back to the Future 2, where they didn't have him back because he demanded more money because he said he was basically like, the third most important character, which he probably was, to be fair. Crispin Glover might not be wrong there. But the court case was because he asked for more money and they said, okay, well, we just won't use you. They used a different actor. And if you remember in Back to the Future 2, the dad, Michael J. Fox, Marty, the dad, when he came in, He was upside down, but he also had a prosthetic mask on to make him look like Crispin Glover. So Crispin Glover took Zemeckis
Well,
to
and
court
it's
over it.
even worse, Ben. The mask I think was made on the first Back to the Future of
Yes, it
Crispin's
was.
actual face. So it
Yeah, it
was the
used his actual
actual
face.
face of the other actor that they used, even beyond him, doing a characterization or a parody or whatever imitation of Crispin's performance. Yeah.
And Crispin Glover I mean, I think that guy is a incredibly underrated actor. I think some of his performances have been outstanding. He's done over the years, and a very colourful character. Um, and at the time, he was kind of written off as this eccentric, and what's he really, what's this, the point in this? He's a young guy. What's the point in this? In going to court with Zemeckis, but ultimately, it was it was just kind of insightful as to where the industry would be going, which is where they are now, which is where they're able to use somebody else's face um, without their permission, but now with their permission, and it's like, then what can you do with their face? Um, so it's sort of something which will inevitably happen, I guess. But uh, yeah, I think that initial, I think that was the first example of somebody suing for
I
using
mean,
the likeness
do you
of
think
them.
Casey? I mean, Pete Davidson's from Saturday Night Live. No disrespect, he's not really an actor's actor. Casey Affleck, I think, has won an Oscar at this point. Ben Affleck's brother. Do you think they're like satisfied? Is like happy to hear that their performances will be improved? Like perhaps if you were maybe less professional, like maybe perhaps Davidson, you'd be like
I
happy. You'd
think
be
they're
like,
like any
this
other
covers
industry.
me. But if
Yeah.
you're like Affleck, you're like insulted. You're this artist type character, presumably.
I don't know. I mean, I think they're like anyone else in this world. They're thinking, well, how will AI impact our industry? And all of these people are rich and they've done well for themselves, so they're not so worried about the impact it will have on up and coming actors, and um, they could probably license their likeness or something. But I mean, because of the people who are in it, and it's called because of the name, Killing Satoshi. Um, as a biopic, I think it's probably going to be a comedy, and it'll probably be funny as well. Um, I'm really looking forward to seeing it. And yeah, I just think they kind of see the writing on the wall when it comes to AI. And rather than do what the rest of Hollywood was doing, which is pretending they don't use AI, they're just like, okay, we'll embrace it and we'll sign this thing which says they can, in post-production, alter us. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's clearly, it's a new case of people's likeness then being able to be reused.
We have had incredible things happen recently. Luke Skywalker, the young Luke Skywalker, came back for a scene in The Mandalorian. I think that he's sold his, Mark Hamill sold his likeness to Disney. So that's going to happen again. Carrie Fisher, Harrison Ford, I know James Earl Jones did a deal where they recorded his voice as Darth Vader. They're going to generate his voice from that and other AI things in the future. So it is a very exciting time to be alive. I agree, Ben. They might not have had much of a choice. It might not be that bad. Obviously, I mean, Doug Liman, looking at his filmography here and just remembering some of his films, really great filmmaker, made Swingers and Go, The Bourne Identity, even The Edge of Tomorrow, which should be called like Live, Die, Repeat or something like that, that Tom Cruise movie. Great
Who
filmmaker.
is
So, I
who's
mean, it
making the
might.
film? Sorry, who is it?
Doug Lyman. Doug Lyman
Oh,
is the director from Go and Swingers, Born Identity. Good stuff. And of course, as you mentioned, Crispin Glover, I have to completely fanboy out here. A huge Crispin Glover fan. Gigantic. I love, he's great in River's Edge. I just looked it up. He plays, looking at a screenshot of the character brought him back instantly. He's kind of a pale punk rock character in a leather jacket, and he's just so detached and just so weird. And Keanu Reeves is in the movie too, but you remember Crispin. And then, of course, Ruben and Ed, The Quest to Bury a Dead Cat. That's a hard to find film. You'll have to find that on
yeah,
VHS.
I mean, in American Gods or whatever, he's in that, wasn't he? And there's Mr. Global, and
I
you
think
just
I just
can't.
saw him yesterday actually in the I watched Oliver Stone's The Doors again, and he plays Andy Warhol. Very small role,
Yeah, and
but
he's even
he's
if he
great
plays a
as
small
Warhol.
role
Yeah.
or he's not the main character, you just can't stop watching him. No, incredible actor, very underrated.
It's too bad they didn't bring him back for Back to the Future 2 and 3. He was so great in the first one. He really brings it up. But yeah, I'm also interested, Ben, in the plot of the film. I go a different way with Killing Satoshi. I see it as like the CIA invents Bitcoin and Satoshi's, inventor, but he goes rogue and now they have to kill him. Like, I guess I take it very literally in like murdering Satoshi or perhaps killing the idea of Satoshi, like that it was supposed to be a thing. And then they're like, no, it'll be an invisible thing. And to make it an invisible, either way, I mean, it could be very spy thrillery. Lyman, like more like Born Identity. I like your version too. It could be like Swingers or Go, be like an independent laugh riot, kind of a silly light film, like Return to That. It's definitely going to be cheap if they're using AI for locations and to quote adjust performances. I mean, I could do that on my computer, right? Like, come on, guys. But we'll
But these are
see.
people who are involved. The people who are involved seem to be pretty serious people who they wouldn't get involved in a project if they didn't think it had some legs. So, and one of the guys there is the Saturday Night Live Saturday Night Live guy. Can't remember his name. So like, and he's generally in funny stuff. So I could imagine it being funny killing Satoshi. Um,
And of
yeah.
course, Pete Davidson was in one of my favorite SNL clips ever, the NFT rap that he did to the tune of an Eminem song. And
I
it
once
was
had a.
pretty.
I don't know. Can I talk about this without being liable? Hopefully I can. So it's when we were doing the race for LM Bits, and we were in Madeira, and it was me and the Allen Bits boys, like all the people who work on Allen Bits. We were, well, the main people who work on Allen Bits. We had this Airbnb, and we were just there. There was like a party, like a big party, um, at the conference in Madeira, and you could see it like on the horizon, like all the lights and everything. And then we were joking around because we are on a few beers and we were trying to raise money. And we were saying, what if we just kidnap Jeff Booth and hold him to ransom? And that's how we raised the money. And then we came up with this whole film plot about these goofy people who have a tech company in the Bitcoin space or any space. And then rather than try and get the money from the VC legitimately, they just kidnap them. Um, and yeah, we like played out the whole film of like kidnapping Jeff Booth and holding it, and holding it to ransom for the money to
I
invest
think
in
it'd
our
be
company.
great, and they could have a whole conference. It's just a Potemkin conference. The whole conference is just to trick people to go there, so you capture them and then get their keys or whatever. And the tagline something like, you only thought you were investing, or
Just
invest
some
to
like
kill.
goofball tech guys trying to be gangsters, kidnapping a VC to try and shake some money out of them to
See,
invest in
again,
their
Ben,
techie
you
company.
pictured the comedy version. I pictured the serious thriller. I think they can take these people down, and it would be like Olympus Has Fallen or like Die
Yeah.
Hard. Still gonna be good. Checking out the
Anyway,
chat.
just
Let's
to
see
make
what's.
just to say, we weren't actually going to kidnap Jeff Booth. It was just a plot for a film we came up with when we were drunk. So
And it could have been anyone. Could have been Jeff Bezos. Could have been anyone. But it would be a good film. Could be a thriller. Um, but it could also be like an idiot heist, like you're saying, like a Coen Brothers kidnapping. Like a bunch of things go wrong. Checking out the chat, they're mainly talking about the length of the bear market. Everybody wants to know if it's going to be 2 years, 3 years, 1 year. Nobody really knows. But some people, they have the charts and they say they know. So, but that'll be interesting. We'll have to see this movie, Killing Satoshi. We'll have to see if it's a comedy or a drama. We'll have a bet on that, Ben. We'll have to see how that goes. But we're running out of time. Ben, do you have a prediction or a story of the week for the end of the show?
I was going to like show some stuff and show some things, but I can't really be bothered to be honest. But basically, we're doing the 1.5 Ellen bits. And I did a whole load of merchant videos. I use Allen Bits in the shop, so I call it Gonzo development, where if you're building something, you should be doing the thing. And I was very aware that we were building a lot of merchant tools, but not actually doing it. So I made a shop specifically to kind of work on Allen Bits, and I've been working on it. And then I transitioned the entire shop to Allen Bits because it also supports fiat payments. So a bit controversial in a way, but it sort of also sucked to have two different systems running. Like I was running Odoo and I was running Allen Bits for the Bitcoin payment side, and I had multiple itineraries, inventories for stock, um, which was fiddly. So now all just I can run it all on Allen Bits, and I built a whole bunch of great tools for managing orders and inventory and everything. So I'll be dropping those probably next week. And we're also doing Allen Bits 1.5, so we've been working very hard on that, and then also updating our SaaS. And we've also integrated Spark L2 into Allen Bits. and that's pretty cool. Like it's a state chain, which is Bitcoin, and you can have a Lightning, do Lightning payments, and it takes like 30 seconds to set up. So it means you can go to our SaaS, you'll be able to like spin up LM bits and then have it accepting Bitcoin payments on Lightning, and it takes seconds, and the fees are very, very cheap. So that's a great solution. So I'll be dropping all that stuff. But the thing which I was kind of interested in over the past, I guess it was last week, was the news with Discord. Um, and how Peter Thiel started getting involved in Discord. And I think that's pretty huge for the Nostr space. That one of the alternatives when it comes to, non-traditional social media could be there was a kind of an attack vector. There was a way in which traditional, I don't know, systems of oppression and whatever else could get into it. And that's happened with Discord, and Nosta's a little bit more resilient to that. So I think that's a big pump for Nosta. So just excited, man, to be working in the area in which we're working in. I think is so cool. This permissionless development area, and it's so important and needed in this world, uh, particularly as more and more control just seems to be being pushed down onto human beings. Like we need these these free systems where we're not beholden to the CEOs and whoever else. So yeah, just enjoying what I'm working on, and I think Nostra will do well off the back of the Discord stuff.
Well, it's interesting to say this week, but Ben, I've been coding as well. I've been vibe coding. Like many other people, I bought a Mac Mini to try out OpenClaw. I haven't had that much success with OpenClaw yet. What seems to be working really well for me is Claude for desktop. I use Claude for desktop on the Mac Mini because it's not my home machine. I'm more comfortable giving it control, so I let it use the web browser, I let it use the terminal. Now, all of a sudden, Claude for desktop is installing web servers, writing code for web pages, PHP, React apps, all kinds of stuff. And I'm having a pretty great time. There was a major paper released recently by a university. They said writing one big prompt at the beginning is better. The machine seems to lose it as we go back and forth in the conversation. I have had good success like debugging programs in the conversation, fix this, move this to here. And it really is like talking to a programmer or a design team that actually listens to you. I remember from working at a startup, you'd say something like, this button needs to be centered, and they'd make you fill out a Jira form for that, and you'd get added to the spec, and then you'd get added to this list, and then someday the programmer would fix it for you, if you're lucky. Working with Claude or presumably any other AI developer, it's pretty great to say, fix this, and then they fix it. Sometimes they don't fix it. Sometimes we go in long loops, all kinds of other things. As far as going back to the OpenClaw, quick notes. When I hooked OpenClaw up to Claude, my French friend, it ate API tokens. It ate like $5 worth of tokens. It ate another $5 worth of tokens. It was not good. You need to configure it to a different model that runs locally and then seems really stupid and not good. So I've used Claude for desktop to configure OpenClaw. That seems to be working pretty well. That's exciting stuff when the computer talks to itself and configures itself. I have a lot of projects going. None of them are really great or production level, so I don't want to share them here for attacks or whatever. But there's a lot of interesting things I think you can do with it. A lot of old stuff like taking my old web pages and bringing them back to life, taking old SQL files that I've saved, dumping them in there. I don't even have to explain to it because it's easy to read. It's like, oh, articles, summary, stuff like that. The computer understands it instantly. And it's pretty exciting.
Yeah,
Ben, what do you
we
think?
should have. I mean, like the Clawbot topic is very topical at the moment. There's all these like, I think it's mainly just these influencers pushing out videos so they can get a bunch of views. There's a lot of hype and fad. Like there's a lot of risks to people installing Clawbot, even if they're like not installing it on their own machine or on their own. Like you're running, sometimes people are running on their own local area network, and it's just amount of backdoors you're giving this like unhinged AI that occasionally hallucinates things. And then when it comes to code quality, like, and with Starship, what Starship said about um, vibe coding, like it's fine for front end stuff, but when it comes to anything critical, like you need you can't have slop. You need something which humans can verify. Um, and more often than not, the code that a lot of these things produce as slop. I have been very impressed with Codex. I think Codex is
Now,
pretty
now,
good.
Ben, did you hear the
Um,
recent story that Spotify, their developers haven't written any code in the last 6 months? They have some kind of an AI system. The developers
yeah.
communicate through that. Maybe they review the code or they
Well,
test
good luck
it
to them.
and then they publish it. I do think it's going to lead to spaghetti, but I do think that a lot of people might just take this task. They'll say, hey, we're
Well, I
just going
think
to
it
let it
depends.
go.
Yeah, it depends on how it's sandboxed. Like for us with Allen Bits, anything like if you're doing money software or anything critical, you kind of want it to be quite dumb, like the way in which you're spinning it. Like I would definitely not advise someone to spin up Clawbot, tell it to install Allen Bits, BTC Pacer, whatever else, and run a node for you and start doing Bitcoin shit because it's gonna lose you're gonna lose funds. Um, but if perhaps with Spotify they have multiple layers and the layer in which user authentication happens and that sort of critical stuff happens. Perhaps that's detached enough from the front end experience that they can just vibe code slop on that. But yeah, I mean, it's a brave new world. The change is coming. I was very underwhelmed with Clawbot. I tried to do the Clawbot thing, and I span up a big fat VPS, and I made Allen bits. I was going to get him to like review PRs and everything. Even made him a GitHub account, and he was just really lazy. So I thought maybe he needs someone to like give him a nudge apart from me. So I made Barbara, who was Alan Bits' wife, on another VPS, and I was like, okay, this is your wife, and you both work together. You love each other. And she's going to give you a little nudge every now and then to make sure you're still working. And then he just like ignored Barbara and so I ended up killing Barbara first, but then I killed Alan. And I thought for the cost of it all as well, I was like, you could actually probably just hire a human to do some of that stuff. So, um, yeah, I was kind of underwhelmed when I went down the clawbot or open claw, whatever you call it, rabbit hole.
See that
And
seems so
vibe
fun,
coding in
and
general is
that's what
risky.
I want. Is I want all these agents talking and going around, and it like I keep doing this thing where I'll be in Claude or I'll be in ChatGPT, and I'll use that to like kind of prototype or describe the thing that I'm going to build. So I'll give it a paragraph, and it'll give me pages and pages like reading out my paragraph. And one of the things it said, it was like, yeah, there'll be an editor and there'll be a writer and there'll be a board director and they'll have meetings and you can read the meetings and all this stuff. And I do all this stuff. I copy and paste and I put it into OpenClaw and it comes back and it seems like it, then I paste the output into the other AI and it's like, it seems like the AI thinks that it is trying to make the thing. So it's described another way to make the thing rather than actually making the thing. So then it keeps saying, oh, I'll make it simpler. And then the one AI is trying to talk simple to the other AI. And I'm going back and forth on this a lot. It's not, I mean, I'm running Olama locally if people are curious. I don't know how strong or good that is. It seems open source and free. I think anybody out there who's running this open claw thing is running into the same thing of running out of tokens. Like whatever your cool project is, a lot of people are putting tons of money in, and maybe they're the happy ones. I also think, Ben, like you've been saying, all these posts on Twitter and X that are so exciting about OpenClaw, I think they're all fake. I think they're all written by ChatGPT or Claude, and they're all like, "Oh, OpenClaw did this, and then it opened up this, and then it connected my life together, and then it did this," and it gets everybody all jazzed. But then, like you or me or anybody, a normal coder, normal average coder person, tries to install this thing, and it doesn't do that much. And then on the other side, like you're saying, I keep hearing about horrible skills that take over your computer. This thing's inside your network. It doesn't necessarily have your data, but maybe it could get it or it could sniff it, or who knows how smart it is or what's really doing. So yeah, it's a lot of fun though. That's a lot of like cutting edge stuff. So more and more people I know are like, yeah, let's go get a Mac Mini. Let's go get a little PC, just so it has a little environment, has a little home, can crank away at its problems. So let us know in the chat in the comments if you're
We
trying
had
out OpenClaw or Claude or any of these things. Go ahead, Ben.
we had it, so we've been working on the SaaS and our Bit SaaS for like 2 months, like updating it, and we've built this really beautiful system, so we could manage the different pods of when people are running instances. And then I had this kind of existential moment because someone was in the chat. They were just saying, "Well, you just use OpenClaw and you get it to install everything, and you don't need SaaS anymore, and SaaS is dead." Um, and not only is there how much can you trust this thing, particularly if people aren't running models locally and all that data is being fed back to OpenAI or whoever. Um, but there's also like I was listening to a conversation and it was someone it was like an older person. They were talking about they were reading out their email And then the person on the phone who was offering support was saying, "Is it all lowercase?" And then the person on the who's on the phone, they were like, "Yes, it's all lowercase. The email's all lowercase. Are you sure it's all lowercase?" Most humans, like, there's a lot of humans who don't even know that email is all it isn't case sensitive. Like, they're still not there yet. So we're miles away from people being able to run OpenClaw and run all their own stuff. And like for some of us tech dorks playing around with it, okay, maybe we get some success with it, but yeah, for regular normal people, it's not it's not going to disrupt the tech industry in the way we think it's going to disrupt the tech industry.
I have heard successes, people, but not necessarily with OpenClaw. Even the Molt book, which is really cool because the guy who wrote it is a Bitcoiner, and he used to do Follow the Coin, and I met him in Santa Clara and stuff. So it's pretty cool match select, and he's a cool guy and all that. But it seems like a lot of the posting on there was people saying like, "Okay, AI, go post on Molt book, go post about our daily activities together," rather than the AIs coming alive and talking to each other, which everybody thought, which was really fun. So it's a lot of that kind of thing. And the same for all these posts. I think all these posts have had such success with this. Although on the other side, I do see people having different kinds of success. Although I really do think, again, with like Claude for desktop, maybe ChatGPT, somebody wrote like an Epstein podcast recently, and they digitized or created the whole thing like this weekend, and it's killing it. It's getting like 500,000 views, and it has a computer voice reading it. I heard there's a local model now that can do your voice. So if you have, say, 5 seconds of, this is my passport, verify me, of your voice, the computer can then just talk as you, which at first seems not that useful. But I was like, well, I could make myself into Alexa. That'd be kind of fun. And then I was like, well, I could read my book aloud without having to read my book. That sounds pretty cool. And then I could have me reading other famous books just using my weird computer voice. But it's still just a computer voice. So why not use Snoop Dogg or JFK or whatever? I don't know. So that's really interesting. And that's a thing that used to be like a company would own your voice or a company would control it. But now just locally, you could do that. Let's check the chat.
That is pretty useful. So like when I do the tutorials, I'm not a great speaker, and then I often trip over my own words, particularly if I'm doing a tutorial because I kind of feel the pressure. So I tend to record things about 10 times before I can actually make something usable. So the idea of just being able to record my voice and then type some stuff in and then have it read that out while I run the demo, that's a useful tool, useful,
That is
example of
funny. Yeah, you
using
could do a
AI.
demo and just script it and then have the computer read the script. Yeah,
I might do that.
but it's so disingenuous. But it's a disingenuous, cheap and easy. It's the same as like having the computer write the script. Like it seems like a pretty good script, but then it's disingenuous when you read it. It's not as accurate. But I think we're getting to a lot of that stuff. But yeah, everybody, let us know in the comments if you're running these things, what success you're having. I built a little Moon Patrol game with Codex. That was pretty cool. I might try to make another version with Claude. But it's interesting stuff, and it's just about iterating, I think, and about messing with it. So I definitely try it out if you
I
haven't
would say
already. Of
that
course,
I would
be
say I think
careful.
the
But
on the AI vibe coding stuff, I would say that most success I've had and the thing which I've been most impressed by is Codex 5.2. I think is they've done 5.3 more recently and it's bonkers, but 5.2 was pretty good. And not for, big tasks, but can you clean this up and can you build this and then small enough chunks that you can go in and verify what it's done. Like, yeah, Codex 5.2 is pretty good.
sounds like Skeptic had an interesting link he dropped a while ago about Gemini, about the bots assimilating the Bitcoin blockchain. It is interesting about them using it. I know there's some people they said they're going to use Bitcoin, they're going to use Lightning. Obviously, I'm in favor of that. I think that's a good idea. Also, though, I think it could be the same thing as using Moltbook, where it's like, computer use Bitcoin because it's the greatest currency in the world. Said Bitcoin supporter to AI.
No,
But
it makes sense. So, like, we have someone sent me a message the other day, and like Alan Bits is a skill on Clawbot, as is Noster. Like when you install Clawbot, like you see the Noster, one of the default options for communicating with Clawbot is you have Telegram, WhatsApp, whatever. But then you also have Noster, Nippo4DMs, and it kind of makes sense because they're permissionless development environments. So if you are just creating things, like what better thing to use than something where you don't require permission. You can just build something, and they have a lot of context too. Like with NOS, you have all the NIPs; they're pretty easy to read and implement. Bunch of great libraries. With Ellen Bits, you got like we've got like 100 extensions out there, which the AI can kind of reference. So I think it's not something we should be able to publish and share, I don't think, but maybe something if you're just building it for yourself, like yeah. It's kind of cool
That
to
is
see
really
that
cool, Ben. If
these,
they have the Noster and LNBit skills in Claude, that's really cool.
yeah,
Claude, sorry,
yeah,
OpenClaw. Let's see. Jack
yeah.
says in the chat he had the time of his life building an applet with Replit. I looked at zero code and launched it in 10 days of work. That sounds awesome. I'd like to do that too. Building an app for the phone would be really cool. I built that little like game in JavaScript, and it was really interesting and informative to think about really how difficult it is to build a game. Like you're playing Moon Patrol and you're like, it hops perfectly over the things, what a great game. You try to make your own Moon Patrol, it doesn't hop right, it doesn't move right, it doesn't shoot right. You have to go through and describe all of these things. But again, it was really fun to describe it all. And it was like something I'd always wanted to do, to make a game or to make some of the websites I'm making, or to bring in my old documents and bring them back to life, stuff like that. So there's a lot of cool stuff. And then at its very core, even though they say it doesn't work that well in that research paper, just talking conversationally to the AI, talking to your computer and being like, computer, do this, computer, do that, and speaking to it, even if it's not that successful in normal human language, it is really exciting. It's what we've wanted for a long time. It's magical, right? And you got to get in.
it is,
Gotta
it is.
try.
But then also, we shouldn't lose sight that sometimes you want a computer to be clever and use AI, whatever else, and then sometimes, and then more often than not in Bitcoin stuff, you want it to be as dumb as possible. You want to be running Nix on some really throttled system, and it can't mess up. There's not you just limit the amount of variables, so you lose money. Um, and that's quite
It
often the way
definitely
with
seems like
computers.
I tried to explain the AI to my brother because he's going to try it too, and he's great, but he's a little less tech than me. And I was like, if you left a bunch of donuts on the counter, the AI will eat all your donuts. Like, in general, just have that idea. And same for tokens, same for Bitcoin, same for trading or horse racing or whatever you're getting involved in. The error will likely be the one that eats all your donuts. And that it won't be like an evil, malicious AI trying to control things unless you get hacked, of course. And then that's a whole nightmare to think about. Hackers saying to your AI, like, let's listen to this guy's network, let's crack all his shit, whatever. That's horrible. And that's also what somebody was saying to me recently. She had watched that the thing with the Chinese robots, and they're all jumping and doing karate and kickboxing. And the idea that she thought of is that now you could have those robots rob banks. You could have those robots commit crimes, et cetera, for you. And now, did you really do it? I mean, you program the robot. Maybe it's even an AI layer in the robot where you're like, robot, we really are out of money. We need to buy soup. And then the robot goes and steals money because buying soup's more, logical arguments.
I was kind of thinking
So
that maybe there's probably someone out there who's getting their OpenClaw set up to, go get me Bitcoin. Here's some Bitcoin, go trade it, go on LM markets, do whatever you need to do. Go into the internet with this Bitcoin you have and create more of it. And then with the right AI and with the right prompt, it would then just go and hack exchanges and do loads of crime. And then the person goes on their computer, they're like, oh, cool, I got more Bitcoin. I don't know where it came from. Maybe it's LM markets, what it was. But actually, it's like hacking all the exchanges. And
I heard about another story, and I think it's apocryphal, where the person's like, yeah, I told the computer about my diet, and it ordered me some sushi, but it stole the credit card to make the order. And like, did the person really, say that? They said, well, we're broke, but our diet would be improved if we had fresh fish. And the computer just steals you some fresh fish. Kind of your fault, kind of not. And yeah, I definitely think it's a it's a lot of stuff that can go wrong. Could be interesting though. And I was going to say earlier, Ben, the most enticing posts are the ones they put on Twitter, and they're like, the AI found a super thing for me to invest in on Poly Market or Kalishi or whatever the prediction market is. And it's always these kind of edge cases, or it researches the market, or it finds like the last percent of every yes. And it's like, oh, the last percent's always yes, but we only get this much. And then it stacks up all these slivers, and you're rich like Richard Pryor in Superman 3. Those stories, those get me. And I think they're fake. I think they're totally fake. I think every single one's fake. I think all the, oh, it's doing my life for me and it started scheduling my stuff. All of those seem fake. And that's the hardest part about this open clause, this levels of hype. But then somebody must be getting it to work right. Somebody must be, or it's just all hype. I don't know. They
It's
say,
just all hype, man. Like it's basically the cool innovation is that you can talk to your AI through WhatsApp or Telegram, and then that's like the innovation. And it's like, okay, yeah, that's sort of
but mine
interesting
mine
and cool.
doesn't work that way because my open claw is dumb. My Claude bot is smart, and I can't interface properly. Well, maybe I'll reset that and I'll talk to Claude bot directly because it seems much better. But Starship says people are definitely asking LLMs to do trading for them. They're mostly losing money. And again, it's that thing
Yeah.
where people don't publish their losses. Like if you went out there and lost 1,000 on an LM, you're not going to be all excited. Like, hey guys, you won't believe what I did this weekend. I lost $1,000 on a stupid computer.
And it
It's
only
the
cost me
people who,
$2,000 to set up the bloody stupid computer in the first place.
and your whole weekend went too. But
Yeah.
I do think a good point to close is, as Skeptic says, bots don't need permission to communicate on the chain immutably. Skynet uses the blockchain and mempool for corpus coliseum, quantum cyborg entangling humans. It's like
Sick.
the new Godwin's law of everything in World War II references, and it's become Skynet references. The AI conversation is over when someone mentions Skynet. Additionally, my story of the week is that you still have a chance to check out Andy Weir's excellent book, as it says here, author of The Martian, Project Hail Mary. Unlike his sophomore book, Artemis, which wasn't that good, his third book, Project Hail Mary, is excellent. And as it says here, soon to become a major motion picture starring Ryan Gosling. So this is kind of your last chance to read the book with characters that you create in your mind. I had this opportunity before Lord of the Rings came out. I can barely remember them, but I did go through the books and have my own characters before the popular actors take it over in the Lord of the Rings. As far as the movie with Ryan Gosling, it comes out next month. I'm super psyched. It looks graphically wonderful. I think they took the story seriously. This is similar to The Martian. It's a very science fiction story about trying to save the world. And it's about aliens and all kinds of great stuff. I don't want to spoil it, but you still have a chance to read the book. So check out Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. Ben, anything else you'd like to say before we close the show?
No, not really. I think it's a brave new world, and have fun out there. But be safe with those agents. Just be careful with them. Don't run them on your local area network or on your own computer. Bloody hell. Be careful.
All right. Well, thanks so much to Ben for joining me. And until next time, bye bye.
Bye.